We're talking about 7 reasons to love number 7 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU, drafted in the first round of the 2024 draft class at pick number 23. There's a ton to love about BTJ for the Jags. But before we get into that, I want to encourage you to check out our most recent video, 22 Reasons to Love number 22, cornerback Jarrian Jones. We're going to be talking about all 9 and breaking down all 9 of the Jaguars rookies in the 2024 draft class. I don't know if we're going to keep the same format. It's going to get really challenging as we get into the guys with jersey numbers over 30 and our 2 defensive tackles being 94 and 98. But if you really like this format, let me know. I love it. It's a lot of fun. If you want to see if we can get 94, 98 reasons, let us know in the comments. Be sure to share. Let us know what other sort of Jacksonville Jaguars focused content you would like for us to cover. But in this video, we're going to focus on Brian Thomas Jr., 7 reasons to love number 7, jersey number 7, BTJ, Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jags. Number 1 has got to be that he has the potential to be a true wide receiver number 1. Look, Trevor Lawrence has not had a true wide receiver 1 since being the Jaguars quarterback. In fact, maybe you're a new Jaguars fan. Welcome to the bandwagon. Welcome to the best team in sports. It's a great time to be a Jaguars fan. But for all you lifelong Jags fans, you will know this. We really haven't had a true wide receiver 1 in nearly 20 years since Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell. So yes, Brian Thomas Jr., there is boom-bust potential, which is true, honestly, for every draft pick. Yes, there is more risk for BTJ. We've all heard at this point the one-hit wonder stuff from LSU. But he has the potential that if the Jaguars waited to round 2 or even round 3 to get a wide receiver, you wouldn't be saying the same about their potential. BTJ has the potential to be one of the best wide receivers in the entire league. That is how good he is. That is how athletic he is. He ran a 4.3 40-yard dash to the NFL Combine with his height, 6'3", 209 pounds. It's crazy. I actually remember watching it on NFL Network Live and thinking, man, he actually took a little bit of a misstep at around 30 yards. Now, look, he's still flying. He still ran a 4.33, one of the fastest combine times that day, that entire week. But I was like, man, if he ran it a second time, which he didn't, he was happy with his 4.33. I think there was a real shot. He could have got under 4.3, but the reality is he is an athletic freak. Jarvis Landry, as you all know, he's at the Jaguars rookie camp this week as a wide receiver there. That's a whole nother video. Let us know in the comments. I'm going to drop something on that. Let me know if you want the Jaguars to keep and to sign Jarvis Landry, or if you want them to walk away from him and potentially just roll with some younger talent at wide receiver. But he said this week, being a part of rookie training camp, he said, look, seeing him in person, Brian Thomas Jr., he is elite. He's got all the tools. And so Jarvis Landry was really high on him. He said he's already given Brian Thomas Jr. his cell phone. He says if he comes to Jags, he'll definitely be a mentor presence, a veteran presence for him. They're both LSU wide receivers. So he's got that potential. Yes, there is potential for bust, but there is also potential for huge ceiling. Reason number 2 to love Brian Thomas Jr. is he makes his quarterbacks better. We've heard this entire draft, and I think it's true. We're going to find out here in the next couple of years that this is one of, if not the best wide receiver class in NFL history. It is that loaded from top to bottom, that loaded in the top 3, that loaded in the first round, and just throughout this draft class. Well, of all the wide receivers in the 2024 draft, Brian Thomas Jr. had the best career quarterback rating when targeted. For his career at LSU, he had a 143.2 career QB rating, and in 2023, he had a 148.8 QB rating when targeted, which is insane. That is close to a perfect QB rating. Yes, he made Jayden Daniels better. Jayden Daniels is very good as well, and I think he's going to make Trevor Lawrence better as well. And I think a slept-on fact here is that if you look at New Year's Day, Jayden Daniels sat out, Malik Neighbors sat out, but Brian Thomas Jr. laced up, played for the Tigers, which I think also says a lot about who he is as well. but he plays. And what does he do with a backup quarterback? No other weapons around him. He goes out and gets 8 receptions, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a very, very good QB rating for the backup quarterback as well. So he makes his quarterback better, which is really important because there's going to be, right or wrong, a lot of comparisons to Brian Thomas Jr. and Calvin Ridley, especially because the Jags walked away from Ridley. They go out and pursue, draft high, Brian Thomas Jr. And Calvin Ridley, I'm not a hater. I'm not a Ridley hater, but there were simply things that he was not on the same page with Trevor Lawrence, and he was good. He got over 1,000 yards, but he was not a true wide receiver 1. He was not an alpha wide receiver 1, and he simply didn't make Trevor Lawrence better. He had a lot of interceptions when targeted. He only had a 55% completion rating when targeted. BTJ, I think, is going to be the opposite. I think it's going to be more of a long runway, of course, than Ridley because he is a 21-year-old rookie, but I think he's going to make his quarterback better and better, and Trevor Lawrence is going to make BTJ better and better as well. Number 3, Brian Thomas Jr. comes from the LSU wide receiver factory. Look no further than the number 6 overall pick, Malik Neighbors. These guys were a dynamic duo for the Tigers. In fact, they were just the 3rd wide receiver duo to have over 1,000 yards receiving in LSU history. You want to know the other 2 duos? Talk about LSU wide receivers having a ton of success in the NFL. Well, 2013, Jarvis Landry did it. Potential Jaguar there. Also alongside Odell Beckham Jr. 2 really good pros. 2019, who else did it? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. All pro level receivers. And wide receiver coach from LSU, Cortez Hankton, of course, praised both Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., but he said this about BTJ. He said he is the most gifted athlete he's ever coached, and he praised him for having extremely high football intelligence. 2 things that you love to hear. LSU coach Brian Kelly was very high on him. Jane Daniels praised Brian Thomas Jr. for working extremely hard over the offseason to put on strength, to put on muscle, to take the leap. A lot of people are like, what happened from 2022 to 2023? Well, one of the things that happened was Brian Thomas Jr. got a lot stronger, went from a 198 to playing 210, a lot more physical, not just a tall, lean wide receiver, but also a guy with strength. And I think he's got room to put on another 5 to 10 pounds of muscles over the next few years in the NFL. So that's reason number 3 to love Brian Thomas Jr. Another slept on reason here is number 4, that he is scary in open field. Of course, we all know that Brian Thomas Jr. is a deep threat. That he's a guy that's going to go and beat the guy that's covering him, cornerback, safety, just with his pure speed. That he's going to put on the burners, run past him. He ran at the NFL Combine the fastest in the receiver drills, clocking at nearly 23 miles per hour. And he's got the height and ability to just go up and get the ball, making him a deep threat, but he's also very, very good in the open field. In fact, his catch rate in college was 3rd highest among all the wide receivers in the draft, which, hey, those are the 2 things you want receivers to do. Number 1, get open. Number 2, catch the ball. And he did that at a top 3 level, 72% of the time. But he also was one of the best, specifically in this stat, of avoided tackle rate in this wide receiver class, putting him at 23% avoided tackle rate, which, to compare it to some other high-rated wide receivers in this draft class, Marvin Harrison Jr. only had a 10%. I'm not saying, you can go ahead and quote me, tweet me, I guess, saying, hey, Brian Thomas Jr. is better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not saying that, but in this specific stat, Brian Thomas Jr. was significantly better. Also was better than the speedster Xavier Worthy, Mr. NFL Combine 40-yard dash record, and also better than A.D. Mitchell at 10%, also better than Coleman, Troy Franklin, a lot of these other guys as well. And he's just got the speed, the quickness. He played basketball at a very high level in high school, played 3 years at Louisiana, scored over 1,000 points each year there in basketball. And so I think yards after catch was a good strength for him at LSU. And if he continues to work harder, improve, get better, will be an even bigger strength for him. Number 5 is that he is a fluid athlete. Yes, we all know he is an explosive athlete. He tested in the top 10 all-time wide receivers of the NFL Combine, a 9.97 RAS, which is pretty close to a 10. Was off the charts in terms of height, weight, speed, vertical ability, 38.5-inch vertical. Again, those basketball skills showing up there as well. But what's really shocking to a lot of people, Jarvis Landry called this out a few days ago, talking about BTJ in rookie camp, said it's incredible watching him, how easy he makes it look. And a fluid athlete is incredible and impressive and important because, number one, you can't coach athleticism. Number two, you can't coach fluidity and natural ability and natural smoothness. But also, number three, it's really important because typically a fluid athlete has a greater tendency towards longevity, a good shot at having a long-term future in pro football in the NFL. And so, especially as a 21-year-old wide receiver, you don't just want him to be good year 1, year 2, year 3, potentially you want him to be Trevor Lawrence's wide receiver 1 for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years. So he is a fluid athlete, and that is super important as well. Number 6, this was an interesting one to throw in, but I felt like it was really important to mention about Brian Thomas Jr. He's a no ego issue guy. And I'm not throwing any hate or shade towards any draft picks or any other wide receivers, but I think it's super important because of how much talent the Jaguars offense has. You have Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick, the franchise quarterback, the guy that you are probably, I'm thinking, going to pay a lot of money in the very short term. Potentially you wait until the offseason. Either way, if Trevor Lawrence shows up, you're going to pay him a lot of money, hoping to continue to build the team around him. You have Travis Etienne, who has gone over 1,500 yards back-to-back season in terms of yards from scrimmage, which is crazy given the offensive line for the Jaguars. Fingers crossed that hopefully somehow they'll be better next year. You also have Evan Ingram, who had over 100 receptions last year. You also have Christian Kirk, who, when healthy, can get you 1,100, 1,200 yards. You just picked up Gabe Davis, who will probably give you about Bill's production, which is 700 to 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. And so I say all that to say Brian Thomas Jr. is not going to be a guy that comes in and demands to be the focal point of the offense, that demands a certain number of targets, that demands a certain number of yards or touchdowns or anything like that. He's a no-ego guy. Everyone says that he's a hard worker. He's kind of more of a quiet guy. He comes from great parents. I love the interview. Go look up the interview of his parents at NFL Draft Night. Just seems like a great all-around guy. No issue. I think he's going to fit really well in terms of chemistry, in terms of the locker room. I think he's going to respect and respond well to Trevor's leadership, Coach Peterson's leadership. And again, I think you get no issues off the field with BTJ, and that is super important. And then number 7, you got to throw this in there, that he is a touchdown machine. The Jaguars struggled to score the ball in the red zone a ton. I still remember sitting watching in Houston the game with the Jaguars versus the Texans. Yes, we won, which was amazing, but we left so many points on the board. I can't remember how many times we were inside the 10 and we'd run 5, 6, 7 plays because of some penalties on Houston, and we'd still only get 3 points. So we go for it on 4th down and score no points. So what do the Jaguars do? They go get Mr. Touchdown himself, number 1 in college football in terms of touchdowns, Brian Thomas Jr., 17 in 2023. For his career, he finished number 3 among all LSU receivers, tied with Jordan Jefferson. Of course, one of, if not the best wide receiver in pro football right now. Again, he's got a 38.5-inch vertical. His wingspan is 6 foot 7.5 inches. And he also was really clutch. He had 8 of those 17 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. And several of those games, he didn't even play the fourth quarter because LSU was blowing out some lesser opponents. And I also think if you watch a lot of the film on Brian Thomas Jr. too, a lot of guys would say, yes, he had 17 touchdowns, but he could have easily had 20 plus touchdowns given the fact that there were just some missed throws, missed opportunities where he was open in the end zone. I know he was a touchdown machine for LSU, and I really think he is going to be a touchdown machine for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is my bonus. A bonus reason to love Brian Thomas Jr. There's a lot more. Again, throw in the comments why you love BTJ, why you're excited for him as a Jaguar. But this is the bonus one, that he has the potential, I'm not saying the favorite, but he has the potential to win the 2024 Offensive Rookie of the Year. The Jaguars have never in franchise history won Offensive Rookie of the Year or Defensive Rookie of the Year. And yes, the quarterbacks drafted in the top 10 are going to be favorites, Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, and Roman Dunze as well. But Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have some real opportunities year one as a rookie. The Jaguars have moved on from Zay Jones. They clearly want to start Brian Thomas Jr. as that X receiver, as that outside receiver. And if Trevor and BTJ can get on the same page quickly, I'm not saying, again, that he's by any means a favorite, but hey, there's at least a shot to, for the first time in Jaguars history, be the offensive rookie of the year. Just something to watch, maybe a side quest for Jaguars fans, something to watch throughout the season, especially if he starts out really, really hot and the Jaguars have a good year. So that's Brian Thomas Jr. That's 7+1 reasons to love number 7, BTJ. I'm super excited to watch and see not only what he's going to do his rookie year, but hopefully many, many years in a Jacksonville Jaguars jersey. Again, let us know what you love about BTJ. Let us know what you want us to see in terms of talking about other Jaguars rookies. But Brian Thomas Jr., this is 7 reasons to love him, and hopefully he is going to be a true wide receiver number 1 for Trevor Lawrence, for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and for Jaguars fans.